Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. My name is Chris Richardson, President and General Counsel for BDV Solutions. I am going to answer some questions today from clients, prospective clients, just on EB-3 immigration. But before I do that, though, I did want to talk a little bit about ICE and a little bit about some of the concerns or questions that I get from clients and prospective clients on, kind of what do I do if I were to be arrested, detained, pulled over, anything by ICE. I know that this is a big fear and concern among our clients, not just our clients, but people all over. And I am sorry that we have this kind of environment where individuals could be pulled over or could be asked questions. And so I wanted to talk just a little bit as well about kind of knowing what your rights are, what you can say, and what you should be thinking about in terms of avoiding any kind of issues. Um, so the first thing that I would say is if you ever find yourself in a position where you are pulled over or asked, questions, if you're taken into ICE custody or someone pulls you over, you should know that the first thing is that you have a right to not answer your door unless ICE has a warrant signed by a judge. You have a right not to answer questions about your immigration status or what country you're from when police or immigration agents or any individuals ask. You do have a right to remain silent, and you have a right to ask for a lawyer. Those are all things that people need to be thinking about if they were to ever get pulled over by ICE or ask questions on the street by ICE. Um, Now, you do have a right to a lawyer, but the government does not give you one. You do have a right to ask a police officer or an ICE agent to contact your consulate, um, but you don't have to talk about your immigration status with anyone but your attorney who you're going to call. Um, you should always travel with your ID. You should know what your A number is, and you should know the numbers of, two or three people. The one thing about living in this new age is that a lot of us don't know anymore, and so you definitely want to have phone numbers that you remember by heart, at least two people that are close to you, should that if you are ever pulled over by ICE or taken aside by ICE, that you're able to call these individuals or reach out to these individuals. Again, you always hope that such things don't happen, but they're always possible. And so I always have to tell everybody, whether you're a prospective client or a client or anybody in the United States, these are all things that you have to think about in this day and age that we live in. I will also say that, you know, um, obviously be very aware of what you post on social media. That's really important. You might want to keep your social media profiles private and think about what information you're sharing about your life on social media. You should remember that your phone can also track your location, and companies often share this information with each other and with ICE. And that, if you do get pulled over, whether it's by ICE, CBP, State Department, anybody can ask for your phone, any like that at any time. And so whatever you put on your phone are things that can be used. Um, and to go back to that thing I said about, if ICE is at your door, you should only open it if they have a warrant signed by a judge. You should ask them to show you the warrant, and make sure that warrant is actually signed by a judge. Because if you agree to it and you let them in, then you can't use that as a defense later on, because those are to say, well, you let me in my house into your location. And so you definitely want to make sure if ICE is ever at your door that you are honest, and say, hey, you know do you have a warrant that's signed by a judge, and see that warrant and look at it for yourself. So those are the big things to think about. when thinking about ICE and thinking about the things that are going on in the country. And again, we're here for you at BDV. If you have any questions, concerns, doubts, even though we don't, don't represent individuals as a company at BDV, we definitely do help in those situations should they arise. We don't like to think of ourselves as just like the one thing that we do, and that's the only thing that we do. We really do appreciate and want to help our clients all throughout the process. And even if you're a former client, we definitely want to help any way we can. The big news that got announced today is that the government is ending automatic extensions of EADs, work permits. And so if you are currently working, you should definitely check what is the deadline for your, or the expiration of your EAD, and check with your attorney to see about filing for renewals. We haven't seen those in a while, but those are back. And so those are all things that you should think about. So if you have an EAD, it's about to expire, you should definitely check in, because those are no longer automatically extended. First question, when do I think the shutdown will finish? I have no idea. I wish John Basilicia were here, because he can definitely give some more insight. But I actually know John's fine. John and I probably have the same. He probably give the same answer. He doesn't know either when the shutdown will end. The issue is that both sides, neither of them, as of right now, have much of an incentive to end the shutdown, unfortunately. Even despite the 40 million or so whose insurance premiums are going to skyrocket. No, the 40 million or so are going to lose their food stamp benefits, or the 24 million or so who are, insurance is going to skyrocket. I think for both sides right now, there isn't much that they feel that they need to talk about. And so I suspect this shutdown will go into mid-November, maybe December. And, it's just one of those unfortunate things where, regrettably, the people who run our country are they are more interested in the way things are perceived by their bases and how they look on television, rather than work for the American people or anybody else, unfortunately, at this point. And so I think that that's the big challenge, is that nobody feels that they have an incentive to work with the other side to make these things happen, and therefore nobody really wants to do it. So I'm hoping that the shutdown will end next week. There are some signs that like the union that represents the federal government came out and said that we should end the shutdown. And there are a few Democrats who are starting to vote to end the shutdown. And so, I suspect that once the full pain of both the premium with the insurance goes up on November 1, and you couple that with the food stamp issue and the fact that so many people aren't going to be paid, I think all those together as a combination may force their hand earlier than that, maybe in the second week of November. But as of today, if given the option, both sides would just be like, no, we're good. We're just going to keep it as is. Okay, so some other questions. If I'm currently in the United States with a type J1 visa, can I change to EB-3 status? Yes, but it depends on the type of J that you're in, and it also depends on if you can get a waiver. Most Js, or a good number of Js, obviously you have the home rule, or the home country residency requirement, where you actually have to go back to your home country for 2 years unless you get a waiver. And so those are on a case by case basis around Js. And so I would recommend that you reach out to us at BDV. We can talk a little bit about what is your particular circumstance and whether it's possible that you could change. But technically, yes, legally you can, but there's a process behind that. It's not as easy, and there are things that you may have to do. Let's see. Is the immigration processing slowed by President Trump? I think that the president's policies are slowing it in some ways, but not slowing it in other ways, if that makes sense. So for PERM, for example, I think PERM is actually sped up under President Trump, and it'll probably go even faster. And DOL is seemingly a lot more interested in helping people than the prior administration. I'm not saying the prior administration wasn't interested in it, but they, I don't think, ever fully appreciated how high volume of cases expands the wait time. I think that was something that I think the administration was just like, oh, we're helping everybody. But it's like, no, if you have everybody come in, and there's only like a small like window from which they can all come through, that's going to slow things down. And so I do think that the administration at least wants to add more efficiencies and more things that would make cases go faster, slightly in the DOL side and certainly on the USCIS side, while adding different restrictions on there that might slow people down. And so I think it's a mix of both. The great thing about working with an organization like BDV is that we have been around a long time. We've seen during the first Trump administration the different challenges, and we're seeing it during this administration too. And so none of this stuff are things that we're surprised by, and certainly not things that we aren't used to responding to. And so to answer your question, it's a yes and a no. I do think there are parts of the administration where they are speeding things up, but other parts of the administration, they are clearly not speeding things up and adding things that will make it slow. Ending the automatic renewals for EADs will definitely slow things down. Yes, the shutdown does impact the PERM process. That was a question somebody asked, is would the shutdown affect the PERM process? Yes, it does affect the PERM process because DOL does shut down. So the Department of Labor is not processing or working on PERM cases. And the USCIS has like allowed for some extended emergency circumstances that might benefit us later on that. But for right now, yeah, the government's not, DOL is just not open for business. And the hope is that when it does open for business, if people had expiring LCs, they'll let those people be able to join up later. But we'll see. We're definitely lobbying for that and advocating for that on our end as a company. But that's just something that may be out there that we need to be thinking about. And someone also asked, there's no new law. Someone asked about if there's like, how's the EB process after this new law? If you're referring to the shutdown, the only impact on EB-3 is the DOL stage, not only, but that's like a big part of EB-3. But yeah, that's the impact. There's no new law that impacts EB-3 that has come out. Now there are some regulations, like I mentioned, the automatic extension ending of EADs, and so people will have to watch their EADs and when they expire. Let's see if I'm in New York. Someone asked about can your kids be, if the LC is filed in January, will your kids be included in your green card application? The 16-year-old is possible. The 18-year-old will be a little bit dicey. And I would definitely encourage you to reach out to BDV and our attorneys to talk a little bit about the child protection CISPA, and also to make sure that it's the case. But I think the 18-year-old will be a little bit on the tough side of seeing that person. When you're trying to help your child get through this process, not doing premium processing is one way that could greatly help. But for that question, I would talk to our staff at BDV to get more insight into it. But I'm thinking, don't take my word for it, but talk in depth with our team about it. But the 16-year-old should be okay. The 18-year-old, I would be a little bit worried about. Someone asked, is it possible for next year for people in 2022 to be current? I'm thinking maybe. I think that maybe the people by March, April, May of 2022 will probably be current next year. The people in September 2022, that's a little bit dicey. I could see those people being current in early 2027 or late 2026. Let's see, someone asked, My I-140 is approved in last June. I do have a B1, B2 valid. So the question is, can you travel to the U.S. With an I-140, approved I-140, even though you have a B1, B2? The answer is yes. CBP, consular, all of us who manage immigration, we don't look at approved I-140 as a pure intentional issue that, we don't look at it and say, oh, you filed for I-140, therefore you have intending to move to America. So no, that as of today is not an issue. I can't promise tomorrow. I can't promise they won't change the rule on that. So anything that I'm telling you is valid as of October 29th, 2025. I have no idea what November 1st is going to bring. But as of today, yeah, that's not been ever a problem being able to travel on an I-140. Where people did get into issues is if you traveled on a pending I-485 or something like that, or you filed for a 485 and then you tried to file for your visa, or if your case was current. As long as your case isn't current, most officers are not going to, use that as a reason to deny your case. But I can't promise that will always be the case. But that might change, and the administration might change that. But as of today, and I haven't heard any suggestions that would change, but that is something that as of today, you don't have to think or worry about that in terms of entry into the United States. Worry from the standpoint of it isn't an official policy. Now, obviously, when you're entering the country or you're entering on a B1, B2, they're allowed to deny you, refuse you, turn you around for any reason they want, right? Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily I-140. I've just never seen them do that before. But they could say, you know what, like, yeah, I don't like the fact that you have an I-140 and I'm therefore going to turn you away. I've not seen that happen historically, but that doesn't say it to mean that it never will happen in the future. Someone asked, do we accept applicants currently from Kenya? Absolutely, 100%. The only places where we don't accept applicants are from India and China, and that's primarily because the wait times are so long that it'd be difficult to get an employer to do it. But yeah, we accept applicants from all over the world, but except those two countries. Any update on the Dignity Act? No. And quite frankly, I don't foresee, regrettably, any action on immigration this year or next. I hope that Doge and others may look at ways to make things better in immigration, but I don't foresee if there was going to be action, congressional action on immigration, it would have happened this year. 2025 was the time to do it. 2026, and especially after all the bad blood that has passed between the Democrats and the Republicans, I don't think that either of them have much of an incentive to want to come to the table. They barely want to come to the table as is on things that impact American citizens. They don't even want to help the American citizens. So they sure are going to help other people coming to the country. Unfortunately, that is a sad truth of the world that we live in. And so unfortunately, there's been nothing on the Dignity Act. There was this act, this H1C bill, where they want to make a class just for restaurants and people like that. I don't see any of that stuff happening. I just don't think that either side. I think they're both so far apart right now on things that are really, really critical to the country. Not saying that immigration is a critical thing, but if they're going to let 42 million American citizens starve or not get food stamps and let 24 million Americans not get health care, they're not going to care about immigration or immigrants, right? Like if they're going to do that, if they're going to do that to the people who vote for them and actually have that power to vote them out of office, then they're just not going to do anything, period. The best that we can hope for is the Trump administration itself enacts things that will help immigration. But even then, I'm not holding my breath. Let's see. So another question here is like, if after your priority date becomes current, how long to get the green card approved? And you're going to hear this a lot from me, but that just depends. It really depends on kind of what country you're in. So if you're like at one point, if you were in Bangladesh or Nepal, you could expect another year to wait, even if you were current, just because they had such a huge backlog of cases that they needed to get through, that they had their own retrogression within retrogression, or their own retrogression. So even if you were current, you really weren't current, because they, as an embassy, just didn't have the staffing. I think they fixed a lot of those issues. And so there's really no set date, but the best and biggest thing that we can do as a company, and you can do as a client, is just raise your hand and say, hey, I'm current. What can we do to get things moving? And whether that be a congressional inquiry, whether it's us or the attorneys can write to USCIS or the State Department asking them, hey, can you go ahead and issue this? Or even like mandamus lawsuits. There are multiple things that you can do once your case is current, to try to get it to the front of the line. The reason why the vast majority of cases aren't approved once they're current is just because no one has the time. Like, you may have an officer who has like a million different things on their plate, and they're just not thinking about you as an applicant. And so it's our job to push them to help you raise your hand as an applicant, so that they know who you are, they know what you're trying to say, and that they know that you're there. I can't tell you the amount of times where we've helped people raise their hand and then they've gotten their green card immediately approved. And so there is no time frame on when that's possible, but I do think that that is something where we, as a BDV, and the applicants could definitely work to raise that client's hand to make it happen. Any update on retrogression? No, the visa bulletin did not move much for this month. And I suspect for December, though, there will be a little bit of positive movement. And in January, I think there'll be some positive movement too. And that's in large part because things just aren't moving as much right now. And so the State Department, I suspect, is going to have to catch up, because they're about to get to a point now where it's going to be harder for them to justify even issuing green cards. They're going to have to probably slow down on that. And in order for them to catch up and use everything by September, they're going to have to start issuing faster. And so I suspect that we're going to see some positive movement in January, in February, and even March, because I think that we're going to be so behind because of just the shutdown. And even though the State Department isn't impacted and they can still issue visas, they are impacted because certain functions of the State Department do shut down when there is a shutdown. Like, people do get furloughed or ripped during a shutdown. And so if you're a consular officer, you may not have the time to focus on doing 100 cases anymore. You may need to go and do 3, 4, 5 different jobs to balance it. And so because of that, I think that that's going to be the issue. If you are, someone asked about premium processing and getting the I-140 approved. It used to be 15 days, but now it's 15 business days to get it approved. You shouldn't take that long if you file for premium processing. But the government, because of the shutdown and everything, they're maybe not moving they have liberty not to move as fast as they have in the past. Even if you're like a USCIS or a State Department and you are, obligated to respond within a certain period of time, you may not necessarily have to do that right now because of the shutdown. Shutdown makes everything weird, and therefore the government sometimes doesn't want to move. Let's see, I'm from Brazil, already working for my sponsor for almost 3 years. If you're somebody if your case is current, it sounds like your case is current, maybe not, but if you've been working with your sponsor for 3, 4 years and your case is current, you really should at this point raise your hand and talk to us to see if there are any options that might be available. Any possibility of introducing premium processing for PERM? Yes, that's something that many of us have been advocating. So the question is can we introduce premium processing for PERM? One of the reasons why USCIS and the State Department are allowed to continue but Department of Labor isn't, is because those departments are fee generating. They're self-funded themselves, right? Their fees are keep them in business and keep them open. DOL doesn't have that. Everything DOL offers is free, and therefore they don't charge any money. And so there has been an idea of them charging money. There has been an idea of them introducing premium processing for the PERM process. Those are all things that I think are actually more likely to happen during the Trump administration than anything else. I think that there is a big push on the DOL side to be able to do that. And I think that this shutdown is going to encourage them to do this even more. Regrettably, this is the first shutdown, but I suspect we're going to see more. I suspect we'll see a shutdown every year at this point. And I think the shutdowns make it even longer. So I suspect the shutdown in 2026. I suspect one will happen, and if the Democrats get back Congress, then we'll definitely see lots of shutdowns then. And so I suspect that we're going to see even more shutdowns. This is regrettably the new normal in our country. And because of that, I could see DOL winning the battle of finally being able to charge their fees and therefore not having to close during a shutdown. If my brother wants to apply for EB-3, great. Someone from our team, I'm hoping they're listening in on this, will reach out to you to help you get that process started for your brother. And again, about the visa bulletin, yeah, I think the shutdown will help from the standpoint of consular. It's probably not going to be able to issue, and I know this because I talked to people in consular, and they've already kind of let me know that even though State Department isn't impacted officially by the shutdown, they are impacted by the shutdown. So they're not going to be able to issue at the same numbers that they have in the past, and that should, in theory, help the visa bulletin. Certainly, it won't go back in time. It may stay the same, even move forward. Because the State Department is going to want to catch up. And the one thing I always say is that the first 2 or 3 months, the State Department really doesn't do much action because they just want to see like what's the rate, the clip of them issuing visas. But if the clip is slowed, then I can see them maybe speeding things up in order to make sure that they actually utilize all the numbers that are available. One of the biggest things USCIS doesn't want is for any of their numbers to go to waste. And so you could see a world where they move it ahead a little bit more because they want to try to catch up. Let's see here. So I have a valid F1. Is current. If my is approved, can I travel? So this goes back to another question about if I have an F1, but I file for EB-3, can I travel back to my home country? Yes, you can travel back to your home country if your visa is expired. You shouldn't have any problems. Again, as of October 29th, 2025, you should not have any problems entering the country. I can't promise you what October 30th, 2025 will bring. This minute, like, we're always getting new things every day. Something's good, something's not so good. And so as of today, that ability to travel in and out of the country should not be a problem or should not be an issue. Okay, everybody, I am going to sign off for this week. Thank you all so much. I hope to be back next week. And, just everybody, I know that immigration is going through some hard times, interesting times, but just know that we're here for you at BDV. We want to be your advocates. We want to support our clients and prospective clients in any way we can. If you have any questions, definitely reach out to us, and let's see what we can do to help. Whether you're a long-standing client, you just started as a client, our job is to make sure that we are attentive to you. And if you're seeing that we're not, let me know. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.